Hello everyone, welcome to another race analysis video with Mo Allen. In this race, I am racing the Flat is Fast Stage 5 race on the Fan Flats route in Richmond. There are 12 riders to start. We are in the B category, or Zwift racing score 380 to 510. As you saw in the beginning there, my current racing score is 485. I've been yo-yoing back and forth close to 500. I seem well placed against the competition I'm in, so I'm happy with where that score is. I was skeptical when I got downgraded with the last version 3 update for the Zwift racing score, but I realize now, I think before, actually I wonder now if something has changed, because I'm pretty sure the last time I got recategorized I was essentially in the C category, or maybe this race just categorizes things differently. I'm not sure. Here we are. This is as the name suggests, there is not much elevation here. This route is 3 laps of the Fan Flats after a lead in here, which we're doing now. Total distance is 19.3 kilometers, elevation gain of 79 meters total. You can see people using their power-ups here. I didn't do any recon for this race. I didn't remember what the Fan Flats route was like, but I didn't know why people were using their power-ups here, actually. I assumed an opportunity for a power-up was coming, which it does, but not for a while. That banner we just passed there, we've got to come around and go through it again, I believe, to get the first power-up opportunity. Actually, that may not be right. Anyway, I held on to my power-ups. Before the race, I didn't do recon on what power-ups are available. After the race, I realized that there is only draft and arrow power-ups available. So I wanted to keep the arrow power-up, which I have now. I knew this was going to be a fast race. The pace to start was relatively subdued, which I was happy with. Relatively small field of 12 riders. I felt pretty good coming into this. I had been feeling a little off in the last, I would say, 4 or 5 days. Kind of low energy, low motivation. So I was actually scheduled to do yesterday. This was raced on a Sunday night at 7:10 p.m. On Saturday, I was scheduled to do the epic race, which was on the It's a Climb finish, I think, or It's a Party. I'm not sure which. But timing was such that I wasn't able to do that. So this is the race we chose. I'm not racing with my coach, as he's in the next category up, but 2 other people I ride with, including my coach, are racing this at the same time, just in another category. So he decided to do this race and invited me to do it, and I was able to do it. So a lot different from an epic race with climbing, but happy to get something in at the end of the week here. So I was feeling good at this point. 4 minutes in, about, I felt like with the start and where we are now, again, it's only 4 minutes, but you can learn a lot of what the group is doing in 4 minutes. I didn't feel in danger at all. You'll see there will be some slight ramp ups here and there. Inevitably, with, of course, this flat, there will often be times where there will be some surges on any little incline, just to try to, what I assume is to try to break up the group. I hardly ever am the instigator of those, so I'm just assuming what those surges are about. So I just try to hang on any little inclines. These inclines were not an issue for me. I think the highest percent elevation they went to was 3% for a short time. So here we are coming up to the end of the lead-in. We're going to go around this roundabout here and then make a U-turn and come back. And this banner up here is the one that I thought was the first one I mentioned back there. So this banner up here is where the course will officially start. The 3 laps will officially start anyway. And so I was aware that in previous races on this route, there are some times where you go around this U-turn and people like to wind up, even though the sprint like isn't in play. People, I don't know if it's a psychological thing or what, but there's more often than not a surge in power through that first banner. So I was hyper aware of that. My strategy here is not to be in the front if I can help it, not to follow 1 or 2 riders off the front, stay with the group, let those riders go off the front. You'll see, actually, this is a well-timed diversion to this topic, I think, because not too far from now, there is going to be 1 rider that goes off the front. And it took a lot of discipline for me to let that rider go off the front. I was feeling relatively good. It's a relatively short race at 19 kilometers. And I was thinking I could stay with that rider up front, but I'm glad that I got the advice from the coach right before the race not to follow any 1 rider off, because I think it probably would have not done me any favors in the long term. So that discipline was good to follow that advice. So here we are through the beginning of the 3 laps. You can see I do not use my power up. Oftentimes I'll burn the power-ups through the opportunities to get them, but again, I'd rather have the arrow, even if I held it all the way until the end or until I was in trouble, whichever came first, than having the draft power-up. So my nutrition for this race, I had my 2 scoops of the Infinite brand premium fructose blend, 2 scoops of the powder mixed with 20 ounces of cold water. So you can see me here. I had it in mind that I was gonna chase this rider, and I'm on the front here longer than I should be. I was really deciding what to do here. They weren't going incredibly hard, so I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll get on the front and prompt the other riders maybe to make some moves. I actually wasn't on the front as long as I thought there. It felt longer in the moment, knowing that I shouldn't have tried to chase. Now, so this 1 rider is going, and I want to go with them in this scenario, right? There's already 1 off the front, so and the group goes with them too, so that's good. I don't have to make any decisions about trying to stick with them. Only me and another rider chasing 1 rider up the road. You will see that there are some, towards the end, there are some attempts to break away, which I do follow because it's towards the end. But this early on, we're not trying to follow any 1 or probably 2 wheels off the front. We would hope that the group would bring them back. You have to gauge once you get further into the race, because there isn't much time, it being a relatively shorter race. So, but at this point, I was still thinking that like part of me wanted to go and chase that rider off the front, but this turned out to be, in this instance, the right decision not to chase. So here, as we approach a left-hand turn and another turn up the incline, as I mentioned, you'll see the instigation start. A little bit of an attempt, I assume, to break away and get a little bit of power going up this incline and see maybe if early on anyone could break. So I didn't panic here. I was keeping an eye on the watts. You could consider this a gap, but again, I didn't feel like I was in danger of losing these riders at this time, so I was happy to have stayed controlled. High cadence catch here, which is felt pretty good as well. So the group is coming back, and that little instigation there is actually bringing the rider who went off the front. It's bringing them back to the group too. So now the group is going to be all back together. So here we are, that's one lap down going through the banner there. I did use my power up earlier on there just to stay with the group on the little acceleration. Luckily got another arrow power up here. Plan just like I did at the beginning to only use that if I feel like I need it, and otherwise save it for the sprint finish at the end of the race. So here, as we approach the incline again, you can see some fire coming off someone's wheels, indicating that they are putting in a surge. I think I overreacted a little bit here with my response to it. They let up. One thing so you see all the riders behind trying to keep up in the 4 to 5 watts a kilogram range. One thing I was worried about a couple of times during this race, which didn't ever turn out to be a problem, but I was worried about it, was me trying to be the one that is in front catching or closing gaps on these inclines, and then having people surge from behind in sort of a counterattack manner. So that's one thing that I'm not yet comfortable with. I wish, and I think the Zwift Play controllers would help with this, I wish I had an easier way. So I run the application Zwift on a laptop, and it's, probably 3 or 4 foot away from me. So I have to reach the keyboard or the trackpad or any of the buttons to toggle views. I wish I would have had an easier way to see. I mean, I can see the gap to the riders behind in terms of time and their power output, but that over either the rear view or the overhead helicopter view, in those situations I would have likely just switched the view if it were convenient and easy to see how the group behind was reacting. So there we go, 2 laps down, 1 lap to go, 22 minutes, 30 seconds, 5K to go, 5 kilometers. Currently sitting at 159 beats a minute, 269 watt average for the 22 minutes so far. Happy that no one is surging through that sprint segment unnecessarily. And so now I'm just trying to think as we get towards the end here. I'm familiar with the group, familiar with the route, having done 2 laps, and now I'm just hyper aware and trying to mark. At this point, you got to go with anyone who goes off the front. There's not enough time to let the group make a decision. So here I'm just keeping an eye on the group as well as the watts of the riders in the list. Once I see any of those numbers get out of the gray into the white, indicating that they're increasing their power output for a sustained period of time, then I would try to stay with it. And certainly if someone goes up into the orange and puts in a real big dig, then I have to try to go with that. Relatively subdued to this point, but now I'm trying to conserve as much as I can. I think I did a pretty good job. So you can see someone here, speaking of the orange numbers, the rider W. Lee, who is, I believe, the rider who went off the front earlier. They make a little push here. It was interesting here. You can see I'm sitting at 4 watts a kilogram, and they were up briefly at 7 and at 6. I never felt in danger of not catching these riders. I'm happy with how I responded here. I mentioned I think I overreacted earlier. These gap closes here were I think appropriate and I didn't use too much energy. Here we go. I don't want to be second wheel necessarily, but with someone sort of going on the front there, they weren't trying to get away. They just, I think, were coming from the back. Again, I was just kind of hyper aware of making sure no gaps form at this point. I've got to go with the front, hoping that there aren't too many surges off the front that'll sap the legs. And just sitting in and waiting, hoping to. So here we go, another surge by W. Lee. Again, up over 7 watts a kilogram, and me making the effort to close the gap. They don't sustain it for that long. They sort of go up and down on their power and come off of it. This was a wasted energy drain here. You could argue that it would have been better for me to let someone else catch there, but if I didn't react, then that rider could have thought that they could have had a clearer path to a breakaway. So I felt like I did. Here we go here again with people. Here I was considering with 2.3 kilometers left and there being small gaps to the riders behind. I think you'll see me turn off the graph here at the bottom. Power output graph. I was considering trying to break away myself here, getting a little gap. It seemed like a good number of these riders were not as responsive to the moves, right? So I was thinking if I had it in me, maybe I would just try to break away. Recently, I think maybe it was the last ride I did, the Tour de Zwift, I think the middle distance, the standard distance, stage 3, which I forget what it was on, not the big ring, Magnificent 8. I want to say, here we go with another surge off the front and me trying to close it down. W. Lee again going off the front. So in that Tour de Zwift ride at the end, it was a zone 2 to zone 4 effort for me. We often will sometimes ride those Tour de Zwift rides as races, but that wasn't a race. Regardless, at the end, I had an opportunity to test a little breakaway because the group I was in, we were, several dozen riders back from the front, but the group I was in, they were obviously interested in trying to see who of our group could win or come in, before the others. So in that one, I did a good breakaway. I mean, I went up a real high wattage for a short amount of time, got a gap, and then just kept it. So I had that in mind here earlier on. So there, I turned the graph off sometime earlier here, but I was like, maybe I'll try that same thing and just try to put in like a 8 or 9 watt a kilogram for several seconds and get a gap. And so here we go again with W. Lee going off the front and me. Pretty good reaction time here. Again, not overreacting, sitting in, watching their watts the entire time. There they go back and off. So here again, this is what I was talking about earlier. So you can see a gap behind to several riders in terms of the distance behind, and if not the time of 1 second. Here I was thinking maybe I should increase it and try to keep those riders away. But so here we go, last turn. This is where things heat up. I stand up, just waiting. I pop the power up and the rider Y. Kim goes just a second before me. And I do a pretty good effort here. So Jay Furlick goes past me, but I'm able to go around them right there. But I'm not able to catch Y. Kim at the end. Y. Kim had 14 watts a kilogram sprint there. So congrats to them. I'm happy with this ride, really happy with it. Came in second on these results on Zwift Power, actually, which you'll see here in a minute. I came in first. I assume that's because Y. Kim isn't registered on Zwift Power. They seem to have had heart rate, and they had, it wasn't like they did anything suspicious or got flagged from what I could see, so I think they just weren't registered on Zwift Power. So second place here on the Zwift results and first on Zwift Power. I'll take it. The rest of the team did well too. My coach, he got a podium spot, and the other rider came in not too far behind him. All in all, I'm really happy with this result. Good race, good half-hour effort. You'll see here in a minute that my Zwift racing score actually went up 15 points here to 500. So flirting with that next category, the bottom of the next category that starts at 510. So this is a good ride. You'll see my power output here for 5 seconds there. You can see I did 1,047 watts, which is pretty good. I had a 7.7 watt per kilogram average for 30 seconds, which was at the end of the ride, which was also pretty good. Happy with this. I appreciate you all watching. If you have any comments, let me know. Love to hear them. If you race this race, I know I talked to a couple people through Strava comments who I said I would let them know when this video was available. So curious your thoughts. Appreciate you all. Hope you all stay fit, stay healthy, and I will talk to you later.